Hello everyone, let's learn today attachments on the radius. Now we already discussed points regarding side determination of the radius and the general features of it. So you can easily make out by the upper end, by lower end and a sharp introitious border that it is the right radius. Okay, and if we talk about the attachments on the radius, so this is a head which is having a disc like articular surface, right? On the superior surface there is a depressed area, and that depressed area it is covered by hyaline cartilage, and that will accommodate with the capitulum. Over here you can see, right? And between the capitulum and the head of the radius there forms part of the elbow joint. Okay, so the superior surface is articular. Similarly, the circumference of the disc like head, it is also articular. It is covered by hyaline cartilage, and that will accommodate with the radial notch on the ulna. Now this is ulna, and on its lateral side you can see over here there is a radial notch, and into that notch the radial head will accommodate. There is an annular ligament that will fix the radial head, and together will form the superior radioulnar joint, which is pivot for radiosynovial joint, and within that joint the head of the radius will rotate like this during the act of supination and pronation, right? Similarly, the neck, which is the constricted part below the head, is covered by annular ligament along with the part of the circumference of the head, right, like this, and that will keep the head into its position. Next to the neck is radial tuberosity, which is rough posteriorly and smooth anteriorly. So the rough posterior part of the radial tuberosity will receive insertion of tendon of biceps brachii, whereas the anterior smooth part is covered by a bursa, right? Now below the radial tuberosity, this portion of the shaft will provide attachment to oblique cord, right? Whereas the medial aspect of the neck, over here you can see there is attachment of quadrate ligament, right? Now if you see the lateral surface, which is situated between anterior border and posterior border, this is lateral surface, and this lateral surface will receive insertion of three muscles from above downward. The upper third will receive insertion of the supinator. The middle third, you can see over here a rough strip, will receive insertion of pronator teres, and the lower third just above the styloid process over here, this portion of the lateral surface will receive insertion of brachioradialis. So for lateral surface you need to remember three muscles from above downward: supinator, pronator teres and brachioradialis. Now if you see the anterior border, in upper half it is oblique, it is called as anterior oblique line, and that will provide origin to the radial head of flexor digitorum superficialis, right? Now if you see the anterior surface, which is situated between the anterior border and the introitious border, in upper two-third it will provide origin to flexor pollicis longus. In the lower third, the anterior surface and the triangular area situated above the ulnar notch, okay, over here, this area receives insertion of pronator quadratus, right? Similarly, the lowermost part of the anterior surface, over here there lies a tendon of flexor carpi radialis. Lateral to it, the anterior surface is in relation to the radial artery, and we take generally pulsations of radial artery against that flat anterior surface, right, next to or lateral to the tendon of flexor carpi radialis, right? The lowermost part of the anterior border provides attachment to extensor retinaculum. Similarly, if you see the introitious border, okay, in lower two-third or lower three-fourths, you can say, it provides attachment to introitious membrane, leaving a gap above through which there passes posterior introitious vessels. Now in the posterior surface, which is situated between posterior border and the introitious border, it provides origin to two muscles from above downward. The upper one is abductor pollicis longus and lower one is extensor pollicis brevis, right? Now see the lower end. The lower end has got two sharp margins, anterior and posterior, and both the margins are providing attachment to the joint capsule of the wrist joint. Medially, if you see, there is a notch which is called as ulnar notch, right? It is accommodating the head of the ulna. You can see over here like this, and together will form inferior radioulnar joint, which is again pivot variety of synovial joint. The lower margin of this notch, this one, this is providing attachment to the articular disc of the wrist joint, and which is at other end is attached to the ulna, right? So the head of the ulna remains above that disc and it will not take part in formation of the wrist joint. Inferiorly, the lower end, it is smooth, it is articular, and it has got two impressions, laterally triangular impression and medial one quadrangular impression. This triangular impression is for the accommodation of the scaphoid, whereas this quadrangular is for the accommodation of the lunate, right? That will form the wrist joint. Now if you see the posterior aspect, from lateral to medial, so many longitudinal grooves are seen, right? And the margins of the grooves, they are having attachment of the septas which are running down from the extensor retinaculum, right, which is situated over here, and this is sending septas down, and the septas are attached to the margins of these grooves and converting this into 6 compartments from lateral to medial, right? And each compartment has got a specific tendon, a particular tendon. So if you see the lateral most groove, which is situated between the anterior border and the styloid process, right, this groove lodges tendons of abductor pollicis longus and extensor pollicis brevis. The next groove, next to it, it is situated between the tubercle of Lister and the styloid process, this one. This will allow passage for the tendons of extensor carpi radialis longus and brevis that will accommodate into the second compartment. The third groove, which is situated medial to the tubercle of Lister, which is oblique, which is smaller, and this is allowing passage for the tendon of extensor pollicis longus. Now the important thing to understand regarding this is the groove is oblique and there is a tubercle. The tubercle itself will behave as a pulley, and that will help in changing the direction of the tendon from straight to oblique, right? If you see here, you can appreciate a tendon over here, right? This is a tendon of extensor pollicis longus which is extending up to the distal phalanx of the thumb over here. Now here lies the tubercle of Lister, okay? So initially the tendon is coming down vertically, then because of presence of that groove and tubercle of Lister, it can change its direction from above downward, from medial to lateral towards the thumb over here, right? So it will be accommodating into the third compartment beneath the extensor retinaculum, right, over here. This is for tendon of extensor pollicis longus. Now the fourth groove, okay, the medialmost groove is accommodating and it is allowing passage of 4 structures, namely tendons of extensor digitorum, the tendon of extensor indicis, the anterior interosseous vessels, and posterior interosseous nerve. The fifth groove and the fifth compartment, it is situated behind the inferior radioulnar joint. So if we join both the bones together, right, and if you see them from behind, so opposite the inferior radioulnar joint, here lies the fifth compartment, and that is allowing passage for the tendon of extensor digiti minimi. Now for the sake of completion of all 6 grooves and the 6 compartments, the 6th groove is situated behind the ulna, between head of the ulna and ulnar styloid process, and that will allow passage for the tendon of extensor carpi ulnaris. So this is how all 6 grooves and the compartments are formed along with the septas and extensor retinaculum, and they allow passage for a specific tendon and the structures to pass through, right? So These are the points regarding attachments over the radius. Hope you understood well. Thanks for watching.